Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so Black Clover chapter 273 is out, and there are some exciting things that happened in this week's chapter. I mean, we got some old characters who we haven't seen in a long time showing back up. We got some characters who we've only been hinted towards and never officially saw before showing up for the first time. And we got some big reveals from this week's chapter. Now, before I get into the chapter, or actually when I get into the chapter, I'm going to start the review off by talking about the ending instead of the beginning first, just because I feel like the ending is possibly my favorite moment from the entire chapter, but it's possibly the moment I have the least to say about. So I'm going to start this review off by talking about that and then go forward from there. Alright, so getting into the ending. First off, I love the costumes, like the new uniforms that everyone's going to be wearing during the Spade Kingdom invasion arc. I love them. I cannot wait to see what they look like in color. I'm personally feeling that they're probably going to be purple, based off the shade of black that they're using in the scan. It just is based off of the scan from the fan translation. Maybe when the official one comes out on Sunday, it'll look cleaner and I can actually get a better look at it. But based off the shade of black that we get in this fan translation, it looks like the designs are going to be somewhat purple, mostly purple for the entire thing. But yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving every single one of their new designs for their new uniforms, especially Dorothy. Dorothy possibly has my favorite design on all of them, just because I feel like that top hat that she's wearing with the flowers around it, I feel like it just perfectly suits the entire outfit. Like as an artist, it completely it completes the outfit. It completes the entire design. So I'm really digging that. Now, possibly the best part of the entire final double page spread is seeing the fact that Sekei of all characters is there. And now this actually makes the latest episode of the anime make a lot more sense, because if you watch the anime on episode 153, the episode that actually showed up earlier this week, we had a whole, I want to say about 10-minute segment that was pretty much devoted to Sekei. And when you're watching this episode, you're wondering, all right, you know, it's kind of funny that we're getting some time devoted to Sekei. We're seeing him basically getting a promotion that he doesn't deserve. He's getting all this praise that he doesn't deserve from the king, just because he happened to save the king when he was running away. And when you're watching it, you're like, all right, this is funny, but why are we spending so much time on it? Why are we so devoted to this scene with Sekei? Why can't we just have like a quick 2 or 3 minute scene and then just move on? Why are we spending so much time on this? And I think it's pretty clear that this was actually Devada's input for that episode to say, hey, put Sekei in the limelight for at least a few minutes here so that we can kind of hint at the idea, or kind of like foreshadow the idea from the anime to the latest chapter of the manga, that he's going to be part of the team going to invade the Spade Kingdom. And keep in mind, despite how you might feel about the episodes that we've been getting lately, that basically just span the time between when Asta and them were invited to go and train at the Heart Kingdom to when they actually do officially go there to train, all these episodes, despite how you might feel about them, are still technically canon, and Devada actually has been given some of his input for at least the majority of these episodes. And that means that the promotion that Sekei got in the latest episode is still technically canon to the manga, which will make a lot more sense as to why he's actually selected to go with them on this mission, because he is currently now one of the highest ranking magic knights in the kingdom. He's on the same rank level as Yuno, who is currently the vice captain of the Golden Dawns. So rank-wise, it would make sense for Sekei to be selected to go on this mission. Plus, the king would want someone who is his representative on this mission. And since Sekei is the king's personal attendant, it would make sense that he would be the one that he would select to be his representative on this mission. Now, power-wise, obviously, Sekei does not fit with this group. Even the weakest member of this group is leaps and bounds more powerful than Sekei. But I still think that Sekei, as I said in my leak video for this week, I think Sekei's character has potential. I think his magic has a potential, and I think that we can actually see his character, even if he still stays the same kind of joke, comic relief character he's been since the beginning of the series. I think there is potential for him to at least do something in this arc, something meaningful besides just running away and happen to get lucky in saving an important person. I think he actually can have a meaningful moment in this arc, and I actually hope Devada actually does give him some kind of justice, some kind of like importance to the arc if he's going to bother putting him in here and not just have him here for, you know, the comedic relief. Okay, so last thing I actually want to mention about the beginning, I actually didn't realize I had so much to say about this entire like ending of the chapter. But one thing I want to mention lastly about the ending of the chapter is that obviously that the fact that we're getting uniforms for the squad is kind of supposed to remind us of the whole Royal Knights thing, like the whole fact that we had the Royal Knights in the last arc. Honestly, this is reminiscing back to that. And I'm wondering, are these guys going to have a name kind of like the Royal Knights? Are they just going to be called Royal Knights again, since they're pretty much doing the same kind of mission that they did last time? Or are they going to be given a brand new name like the Spade Kingdom Invasion Crew or something like that? And also I'm wondering, do they have uniforms for Asta and the other characters who are currently training in the Heart Kingdom, like Noelle, Charmy, and them? Are they going to show up and give them uniforms as well when they join the battlefield? Or are we going to actually see these characters show up and actually be wearing elf gear, since they are training with the elves currently? It actually would make a lot of sense if they actually showed up and they're wearing like elf attire for this arc. Now, the beginning of this chapter is actually a clear point as to why you cannot take the leaks for each week's chapter as a clear, concise evidence of what's going to happen in a chapter, because the dialogue is always subject to change when we get to translation, and even when we get to fan translation, the dialogue is still subject to change when the official one comes out. And this is more evident in this chapter because during the leaks, when I made my leak video, I was reading the summary stated that the Diamond Kingdom was full-on partnered with the Spade Kingdom, that during the invasion, some kind of deal was struck, or at least it was implied kind of that some kind of deal was struck, and that the Diamond Kingdom and the Spade Kingdom were working alongside each other. But what we end up finding out in this chapter is that it's not actually the Diamond Kingdom who are working with the Spade Kingdom. Because last time we heard about the Diamond Kingdom, it was that the Spade Kingdom had invading them and basically taken it over. What we now know is that someone from the Diamond Kingdom had kind of defected from there and is currently working with the Spade Kingdom. In fact, he's the scientist that we see in the beginning of the chapter who is healing Dante. And this scientist is actually someone that we've met before through a flashback, but not actually in the series. And I don't think we actually ever saw him in the flashback full character design. I think we only saw him silhouetted. And this character is the character of Morris, who, if you remember back to Mars's flashbacks, is the character who's basically in charge of all the experiments that Fauna and Mars were put through as children, and actually led them to become the characters that they were prior to Asta meeting them. So yeah, this is one sick, twisted motherfucker. I mean, this guy was experimenting on kids back in his heyday, and now he's working with the Spade Kingdom, and the fact that they have devils. Honestly, it's clear what he's after. He's after the devil power. He wants it in some way, and he saw this opportunity to work with the devils and work with the Spade Kingdom once he got outed and kicked out of the entire Diamond Kingdom, which we end up finding out in this chapter is because of Mars. Apparently, Mars's plan to basically go in and reform the Diamond Kingdom was working. He actually was, making changes to the Diamond Kingdom. One change was kicking Morris out. And the fact that we actually got Mars name dropped in this chapter by Morris confirms in my at least to me, that Mars is going to show up at some point during the arc. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to show up, and I don't know exactly how helpful he will be. I mean, I guess we could see Mars taking on a more serious, lesser opponent. I don't think Mars, unless he had some major power leaps since the last time we saw him, I don't think he's strong enough to take on a devil by himself. But we could see Mars teaming up with a few characters in order to take on a lesser devil, or even maybe one of the higher ranking Dark Apostles. And on top of that, actually, now that I think about it, maybe the reason why we're setting up Mars to show up in this arc is because of the fact that he's going to be actually the one to take out Morris. Which, speaking of Morris, it actually makes a lot of sense, like I said, why he would join up with the Spade Kingdom, especially after getting kicked out of the Diamond Kingdom. Because honestly, he wants the power of the devil. In fact, even though he's currently working with the Dark Triad, I have no doubts in my mind that the first opportunity he gets, once he realizes what he's able to achieve with the power of the devil, and found some way to basically harness that power, he will betray them in a heartbeat, or at least he will attempt to. I'm not sure how it's going to end up working, and I think that maybe during the confusion of this arc, when the Dark Triad are busy fighting off against the characters from the Clover Kingdom and our Kingdom, maybe that's when he'll actually take his leave and actually use his research that he gained from the Spade Kingdom to find a way to harness the power of the devil for himself. Because if there's anything that we know about his character, just through the flashbacks alone, all he cares about is power. And that's all he seems to want. And there's nothing more powerful, as far as we are aware of just yet, in the Black Clover series, than the power of a devil. And there's actually other characters that we actually see from the Diamond Kingdom in the beginning of the chapter. One of them is Lotus, who, I gotta admit, I was actually a little bit disappointed by the fact that Lotus was here. Even when I actually saw the leaks for this week's chapter, I was very disappointed by the fact that Lotus, of all characters, were there. But at least with the leaks, when we had the idea that maybe this Diamond Kingdom and Spade Kingdom were teaming up, it made sense as to why Lotus would be there, because he basically would be working for the Diamond Kingdom still. But now that we know that Morris has been kicked out of the Diamond Kingdom, and that apparently, as far as we're aware, the Diamond Kingdom is not working with the Spade Kingdom. The Spade Kingdom still just invaded and took over the Diamond Kingdom. It kind of upsets me that Lotus is working for them and working for Morris, because as I said in my leak video, I always kind of found Lotus, even though he is technically a villain, I always found him as being kind of like a stand-up guy, because he was made very clear in his introduction arc during the dungeon arc that he was only really doing things because he had a family to take care of back home. And I always kind of respected that in a way. Even though he was technically a villain, like I said, I always kind of respected his character. But now that we know that he's actually working with Morris, I kind of respect him a little bit less. I'm kind of upset by that. Now, the other characters we actually get to see that are from the Diamond Kingdom are actually silhouetted. We don't actually get to see what they look like, but we can tell that they actually are from the Diamond Kingdom because we've actually seen them prior to this. I want to say it was back in episode 55 and chapter 79 of the manga. I believe it was during one of March's flashbacks where we actually get to see a silhouetted character with their boots. And this character that we see in that flashback is wearing the exact same boots that we see this character who's standing to the right of Morris is wearing. Now, there's actually two characters in this silhouette. Now, because of the fact that obviously these two characters are silhouetted, so we don't get to see their faces, and since we can kind of assume that maybe those boots are just normal attire for the Diamond Kingdom, these really could be any two characters, and the thought crossed my mind that maybe this actually might be Mars and Ladros. And while it could still possibly be Ladros, I don't think it's Mars, just because personally I like the idea more that Mars will show up later on in the arc to help out, and that he's possibly part of the resistance against the Spade Kingdom. We also end up finding out in the chapter that Morris is the one who actually made the Candelo, that giant spider-like machine that the Spade Kingdom soldiers were using to cross the Grand Magic Zone in the beginning of the time skip in order to get into the Heart Kingdom. So that's actually kind of interesting, but at the same time, since he is a scientist, it makes sense, and especially since that machine was designed to suck mana away from, innocent people, it makes perfect sense with his character. Now, in the beginning of the chapter, there's actually a very crazy moment where we get this giant devil. Like, we actually get to see this giant devil sealed behind what looks like some kind of crystal. And we can tell that apparently this entire plan, this is like the descent that Morris mentioned in the chapter, and most likely this tree of death that they're using Yami and William to activate. It seems like that Devada is implying that all of this is in order to release this devil. Now, what's interesting is that the crystal that the devil was sealed in looks very similar to the crystal or the crystallized wall that we saw Dante in or standing in front of before he went and attacked the Black Bulls. So I'm wondering, was this actually a moment where he was standing in front of that crystal back during that chapter and we could possibly get a hint towards the devil in that scene? Or is this basically just like there's maybe multiple crystals in multiple parts of the Spade Kingdom that Dante's planning on releasing? And this is actually a really interesting reveal because up until this point, we've been led to believe that Lucifero was a big threat. Lucifero was the devil that they were trying to release, and that basically he's the one we want to stop. But apparently there's at least this gigantic devil who's there, who they're trying to release, who's possibly going to end up being the big bad character for Asta and them to defeat at the end of the arc. And when speaking of Lucifero, we actually get to see his partner in the beginning of the chapter for a quick second, and really all we see at Dante is the fact that he's still kind of like healing in that chamber that Morris has him set up in. Now what's interesting is that we end up finding out from Morris that not only is he healing Dante, he's also technically making him stronger, which is a really big deal for me because I've always kind of criticized the fact that, alright, Asta has already defeated Dante, so there's really no point in seeing him fight against him again. But now that Dante's actually going to be stronger and Asta's going to be stronger, it's going to be a more interesting match because the two of them had gained power-ups. Also, if you notice, Dante still has the wound that Asta gave him during their fight, even though it's been a few days now. So I'm wondering if maybe because of the fact that Asta's attack had anti-magic in it, maybe Morris's technology, if it has something to do with mana, can't heal that wound because of the anti-magic properties. And when speaking of Asta, we actually cut over to his training with Nox, and we actually get a tease of his Devil Union form. Now, Devada does it in a very cool way, or a very, satisfying way, where he actually does draw out the Devil Union form. We actually do get to see it in the panel on the left-hand side, but he draws it from the back and from a very far distance away. So while he does actually show it to us technically, we don't really get to see it in full detail. And we also get a tease as to how powerful Asta's going to be in this Devil Union form. In fact, this moment that we actually get where we're teased as to how powerful he's going to be kind of reminded me when I saw it as to the moment where we got in the anime a few episodes ago during the fight between the captains, when Yami uses Dark Equinox Slash against Dorothy to break out of her dream world. And basically how his attack barely missed her, but we got to see how powerful it was because of the fact that it broke through her dream world and managed to slash through the dimensions into the real world and break both the team's crystals. And we actually kind of get the same kind of feeling in this chapter from the after effects of Asta slashing at Noct from what he was doing in the last chapter to basically just get rid of all his shadow clones. And we see that even though Asta purposely missed the attack, his attack was so powerful that just by being near it, completely destroyed the Devil Union part of, I want to say Noct's right arm, and got rid of all the shadow clones and his mana zone with just one attack. So yeah, it's safe to say that once Asta actually manages to master this Devil Union form, he is going to be a very powerful asset in their fight against the Spade Kingdom. But that's the problem. He needs to master it. And as we see in this chapter, he obviously does not have full mastery over it just yet, because just from activating for that brief moment and using that one attack, left him and Leaf completely exhausted. So after they finally realize that they can form the Devil Union form, Noct concedes his loss, but tells the two of them that they can't go to the Space Kingdom with him just yet, because if they were to go there with their incomplete mastery over the Devil Uniform, they would just end up dying and just be dead weight. So he tells them that basically they have to stay behind and train in order to finally master it, and he actually leaves Gimo Devil behind to help them out training, which we get this cute moment where we get to see him and the other 4 devils, and he is scared shitless because he knows that if he gets attacked by that thing, he's going to die. We also get the speech from Noct when he's trying to convince Asta to stay behind and train up more in order to fully master his Devil Uniform. And in the fan translation, the dialogue is very confusing at first glance, and I think it's going to be better when we actually get the official translation. But what I can basically glean from what he's saying in this chapter, it's kind of like he's saying that Asta's the kind of character, because he mentions that he's been watching the Black Bulls for a long time now through shadow magic, and he says that Asta's actually the kind of character that he has been talking about since his introduction, that he actually likes. You know, the kind of character that is good, not only on the inside, but on the outside as well, and that they actually do good by good actions. And he says that even though people like him aren't usually rewarded, he still holds out hope that they will be rewarded for their hard work. So he's basically saying that he believes in Asta. He believes that Asta will actually manage to succeed through his hard work and will be rewarded for it by basically being able to save Yami. So that's what he's basically saying to Asta in this moment, as a way to convince him to stay behind and train up. Oh, and speaking of Yami, I actually forgot to mention, we get a brief moment where you get to see the bottom of Yami, basically just the bottom of Yami's chin, and we see that he is actually in a coffin. Him and William are both in coffins, embedded in the area where the Tree of Death is actually growing from. I know it's called the Tree of Clepath or something like that. I know I have a hard time pronouncing that name, and so instead of pissing you guys off by mispronouncing that name, I'm just going to keep on calling it the Tree of Death going forward, until I can eventually figure out exactly how to pronounce it. But yeah, basically we get a scene where the two of them basically just they're stuck inside the place where the Tree of Death is growing from. But that's it for the chapter, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about it. Did you laugh your ass off when you saw Sekei at the end there, standing right there with characters like Jack? Actually, I didn't go over that. I didn't go over the characters who actually are going to be going from basically the Clover Kingdom squad. And what we end up finding out is that basically the captains are all going, obviously. Although I don't think I saw. Hold on, let me go back and check. Let me real quick. You're getting this live. You're getting this live. Okay. So I don't see the captain of the Purple Orcas here, but there is a character on the right side of Yuno who we don't actually get to see their full design, so that actually could be him. But anyway, we can pretty much assume that all the captains are going, obviously. We get to see that Langris is going as well. Yuno obviously was already going because he's representative of the Golden Dawn as a vice captain. And obviously we have Sekei there, so let me know in the comment section down below when you saw Sekei standing there with his confused face as to why the fuck he's standing here with them. Were you laughing your ass off? Because when I saw it, I died. I was dying, crying for about 5 minutes, just laughing straight. But like I said, guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about the chapter. If you liked the video, do me a favor, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will catch you guys for the next one. Peace.